Welcome back to Murder Therapy with Doll Talk and
Welcome.
Cousin Ashley.
Yes.
Every time I
Oh,
say it, it makes me think
I
of
got
Cousin Eddie from... Oh, yeah.
I gotta
Anyways, what
show it
did you
off.
say?
The cousin crew shirt.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mary made those.
Maud
Maud
Mary.
Mary. Maud Mary. I have to say Maud Mary
Yeah.
because my BFF back home's name is Mary, and everybody knows her as Work Mary. I love that
I love Work
I
Mary.
identify all my people. Everybody loves Work
Well,
Mary.
I love both
Everybody should
Marys. I love
have.
both Marys.
Yes, we do. We
Yeah.
love both Marys equally, but Maud Mary's great. Work Mary's great. But I love that I have a way of identifying everybody other than my mom. She's just mom, but like it's Cousin Ashley, Cousin Heidi, Aunt Sue, Work Mary, Maud Mary.
You're in. You're in if you have a nickname from Jody because like as I was starting to come around into her lives, I was like Insomnia Chelsea and sweetest freaking
Yeah.
thing ever, by the way. But she's got
Yeah,
nicknames for like all these people in her lives, and it's so
I
cute.
do.
Yankee Jess, I
Yankee
got to meet.
Jess.
Love,
Yes.
yeah, she's a sweetheart. And
Yes.
then so you're somebody if you get a nickname from her. But
Yeah.
work,
I have
Mary.
another girl that oh yeah, what about Work
I was gonna
Mary?
say she caught us the last time we were recording, just after we were recorded, and she was a
And
hoot and a
couldn't
half.
understand why I wouldn't answer the phone. Like
She was
she
so
kills me.
sweet.
She's something. I'll tell you that. She cracks me up. So one of the psychiatrists I work with, I love him. Nathan loves him. His name is Dr. Sue. We like his nickname at work is Dr. Seuss
Oh,
because
I
we,
was hoping you were
Dr.
going there.
Sue. Yeah, yeah. He is hands down one of the coolest psychiatrists that I work with. I love him. He's phenomenal, and he's been in practice for a really long time, and he's so good with our clientele. But me and Mary, she's gonna kill me for telling this story on my.
Tell it.
She's gonna kill me. Oh God, you just have to know that she's super hyperactive. I love her. It doesn't matter. It could be 5 o'clock in the morning. If she wakes up and finds the need to call you, she's going to call you. And then she's going to say something. She always ends every conversation with Merry Christmas. If she ends the conversation with you and
What?
doesn't it doesn't, she does. So anywho, that's just to paint the picture. So it's bright and early. Dr. Sue's in the hallway. He's like one of the kindest doctors ever, okay? And he knows everybody. No matter what your department is, he knows you on a first name basis, which to me speaks volume of the fact that he's a psychiatrist. He knows all of housekeeping, all of food service, like he knows everybody. And
Wow.
he addresses you with your first name. So he sees Mary in the hallway. He's like, "Mary, I have a question." And they're talking about like it's work related, a patient related issue. She gets sidetracked because there's somebody else in the hallway and gets excited and takes off running and goes like yes out of excitement. And Dr. Sue turns and looks at me. I've never heard this man say a bad word in my entire life. And he went, "What the hell?" And I said, "Dr. Sue, you have to forgive her for she's slightly on the spectrum."
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And he was like, I had something important to say, but she came back. She almost fell on her face running down the hallway in excitement. She's like, "I'm sorry, Dr. Stu. I got to talk to whoever it was," and then took off running again. And he just looked at me and I said, I don't know what to tell you, Dr. Stu. But that's just to kind of sum Mary up in a nutshell. She also, the first time she ever talked to Carson, which is my middle child, on the phone.
My homie.
Again,
My buddy.
yes. Now, mind you, I love Mary. I could give Mary every credit card, debit card I have. Trust her with I would let her have my whole family. I would trust her with everything I own. She's one of the best people in my entire life. I love her so much. This is Work Mary. I trust Maud Mary too, but Work Mary and me, we're BFFs. But this is the first time she'd ever talked to my son on the phone. Not met him in person. And she goes, "Hey, Carson, do you want to hang out with me sometime?" And I was like, "Do you understand how inappropriate you sound right now?"
I already know Carson's response though.
He was He was like, absolutely. And
I
I'm
know.
like, great. We haven't really had like a whole big stranger danger conversation. But yeah,
No,
and I tell a
there's
lot
a
of
huge
people
difference
at work that,
between Carson and Colin too, because Colin's going to ask 50 million questions because he
yes,
analyzes everything, and he's
he
so
does.
smart and he's so intelligent, and he just needs to break everything down. He needs to know the facts. Carson's
He
like,
also
yeah,
gets
let's
very
go. I
anxious
don't know
in
who
other
you are,
people's
but you
homes.
seem cool. Like,
Yeah, I know. I know. God Almighty. But yeah, I was like, Mary, that sounds so inappropriate. Mind you, Mary also used to work for Child Protective Services. So, I mean, she's good people. I love Mary.
but
But
Carson
I
doesn't know
go to
that.
work. But Carson doesn't know that. And he was like, sure, when were we hanging out? And like, I mean, he to this day still asks me every time he talks to Mary on the phone. He's like, of course, Mary's met them. She's been to my house and everything, but he's all the time like, when am I going to get my day with Mary? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Not that I don't care. Like, it's fine, but
He's so full of energy. I love it. I love it so
oh,
much.
she was like, we'll do it. We'll totally do. We'll have a whole day, Carson. She's like, I've got animals. I've got all the things. I'm like, Lord have
Does
mercy.
she have the
But
type of
yeah,
energy
Mary.
where like Carson has the type of energy where like this kid literally will just stop in the moment randomly and just start twerking. Like
Um,
popping and
I
like
think that Mary thinks that she has that type of energy, but she's about to learn very quickly.
let her have
She's gonna
Carson for
hang.
a day.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she
I,
and I mean, if you are in my TikTok live streams, you will know that she just kind of pops in there
oh,
and she never, and she just says random shit. Like
yeah.
everybody should have a Mary in their life. Everybody should have a Mary.
I
I'm
agree.
grateful for her. I really
Keeps your
am.
life
So, but yeah.
exciting. Goodness, I look
Yes,
terrible, you
yes.
guys. I'm so sorry. I've been sick all
You
week.
don't look terrible.
Thank you. I appreciate
She
that.
has been sick.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I've got to say these baby hairs that you're letting grow out.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and it's so funny because she just showed me her Beetlejuice
I
Ouija
know
board.
exactly what you're going to say. Go
It
ahead,
freaking looks
continue.
amazing, but I'm getting Winona Ryder vibes, hardcore. Like,
Well, listen, people on TikTok when I threw my hair up and they're like, I'm digging the Lydia Banks, which I'm
lit,
super excited about because now I got to show you guys. Um,
have to.
my toxic trait is I went to Spirit Halloween. When Mom listens to this, she's gonna shit a brick. I spent $150 in Spirit Halloween. I was so excited. I was like a kid in a candy
You
store.
didn't hear
And my
that, huh,
husband was
Kimberly?
following me. Or yeah, you didn't hear that, Mom. But anywho, my husband's following me around Spirit Halloween. Like, are you ready to leave yet? And I'm like, no, no, I'm not ready to leave. And he's
I
like,
haven't went.
are you ready? Are you ready? And I'm like, I'm ready to go back. Like I'm so excited. I found this gym. I didn't even look at the price tag, but look, I got a Beetlejuice
That's
Ouija
amazing.
board, and I'm so excited about it. I haven't taken the plastic off of it. I'm hosting an event on Saturday. It's something new that I have launched onto my platform. Um, and I'm hoping to make this a monthly event. This is like my pilot trial kind of thing. But a lot of people ask me about divination tools as far as communicating with the other side. That's a big thing that, I get asked. People have been with me. Ashley was present to kind of do ghost hunts the way that I do ghost hunts. It didn't
Yeah.
completely go as I planned, and that's okay. It's fine. That was the first time I had opened that up to my platform. But what we'll be doing is covering true crime cases that people have made recommendations for, and I've got some pretty cool ones. Somebody recommended Marilyn Monroe, which isn't really true crime,
Ooh.
but yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories with Marilyn Monroe, so I'm like,
I
yeah, but
mean,
we'll do it.
do
But
we
we're gonna
really have
have
to
the
stick
Ouija
to true
board.
crime? I know it's murder therapy, but like
Well, yeah.
we
There's
like to
so
twist
much,
the
but
paranormal in there, so why not?
and I have extended an invite. So those of you guys that listen to this on Wednesday for Saturday, I have extended an invite to Ashley if she wants to join us because you guys, there's a lot of people that listen to murder therapy religiously that have signed up for what I'm calling on board with the other side. But anywho, we're gonna be I'm gonna break that bad boy out Saturday. I'm
Cool.
super excited about it, and we're gonna have the spirit boxes. We're gonna do you've seen a lot of my
Yeah.
other equipment that other people on TikTok have not got
It's
to see.
freaking
Um,
phenomenal.
so yeah, I'm gonna break out some of that. So it's gonna be a fun
Yeah.
time. So I'm super excited. but on then we're doing something unique for Halloween later on that night. It's also part of the onboarding event. So if people have paid and signed up to join, they're signed up for both. But
I
yeah,
will try to
so I'm
pop
super
in, and
excited.
I'm gonna like. I will have a good chance that I will pop in, but
Yeah,
Son's first homecoming is Saturday. But
it is.
I'm not going to the
No, you're
dance,
good.
so I'll have time. So
Right.
I'm gonna pop in. I just
Right.
don't know. Maybe I'll just pop in
No,
here and
you're
there.
good. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. I'm sure some people, I feel like that this is going to be a really successful event.
Oh
I'm
my god,
hoping
it
it's going
sounds
to be a
amazing.
successful event. And I think we'll have a good turnout. So there'll be many more in the future.
I
So
just
yeah,
want to give
just
those
be on the
people that
list.
cheer.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Y'all
yeah,
listen for the additional invites for what I'm referring to as on board with the other side. So
I love
yeah.
it.
But
And
anywho, we're jumping on board with a case that I am very passionate about, okay?
yes,
And I'm going to do my very best to tell this story as unbiased as I possibly can, okay? Because I will say there is certain things about this case that I am biased about. But that probably stems from my trauma because they have very similar trauma.
mm-hmm.
So when we get to that point, I'm very curious to hear once we get there what your thoughts are. As you all know, Ashley lives under a rock. I'm like, do you know this one? Nope, never heard of it. And I'm like, how?
If I
Like, I'm
stumble
like,
upon true crime, it catches my attention. I don't go diving into it, and I told her I'm really into, I love paranormal stuff. Like, that's what gets me. But I, like, murder kind of ties into it, but paranormal gets me a little bit more. So I love, I get to do this with Jody so she can school me on stuff.
well, this is probably one of the most controversial cases ever. Because I have to say, I have not spoke. Okay, let me retract that because I would be speaking falsely. I have maybe talked to one or two people that feel one way or the other, but most people I talk to cannot say one way or the other. They're like, I see
Wow.
it from both sides. And you don't hear that very often.
I know a
This
little
is a
bit.
case.
So I'm
Right.
going
So
in
no,
there
so
with
Ashley does
preconceived
know a
notions.
little. She doesn't know all the nitty gritty, but she knows a little bit. And I know a lot of people. I really wanted to cover this. I had the ambition of eventually covering the Menendez brothers, um, and I didn't anticipate us to do it this soon, but I felt right now is the best time to do so because Ryan Murphy just put the spotlight back on them. And although there's a lot of people that are very pro Menendez brothers who are very upset with the series, and I just want to say this, okay? Because I am an advocate for the Menendez brothers, and you will not hear me say that very often with people that murder, period. Okay, but I do advocate for them, and I'm going to do my best again to tell you strictly facts, and then I will tell you my opinion when we get to that point. But I like that he wasn't biased when he did the series, and he included all the theories that the public has and the rumors that got started, and it was up to you as an individual to
Mm,
take what you felt is your idea of what happened.
I love Ryan
Now he
Murphy.
has extended. I love Ryan Murphy, and a lot of people are really pissed off at him about this, but they were also pissed off about the Dahmer series. I
Oh,
just
it
want
was
to reiterate
great.
something. Eric Menendez did reach out. Well, he didn't reach out, but he has spoke to People Magazine, and he made a point to say that he wasn't happy about the series. Listen, again, I'm a huge advocate, but Eric, let's be realistic, homie. I know you don't have Netflix and chill in prison, so be fucking grateful that Ryan Murphy put the spotlight on your case
Mm,
because you are now hitting hot headlines again. So I'm going to need you to sit back and chill. You don't have
yeah.
to agree with everything in it, but I'm like, I don't think he realizes it. But Ryan Murphy, made a response back and made it really clear. If this series offended him, that wasn't his intentions at all. And he sympathizes with them for their story. And that, again, I just want to make it clear. I wanted the public to be, I took facts and he did. And he wants the public to decide what they believe. So
I like that.
we'll talk more about it later on. But in order to tell the story, I like to tell it from beginning to end. And a lot of people get the story from the very beginning as to when the murder started. I want to start it from childhood on.
Yeah.
And yes, so obviously trigger warning. Sexual assault and sexual abuse to minors is a huge topic in this. I won't be talking about that in this episode, but understand in the next episode, because this is going to be a two-parter, it's going to be brought up a lot. So if that triggers you, this might not be the case for you. But I just want to throw that out there, that that's the huge allegation with everything that happens, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with that being said, let's meet Jose Menendez, who was the father of Lyle and Eric Menendez, our little culprits in today's case, okay? Now, he was born in Havana, Cuba. I'm probably not saying that correctly. In 1944.
Mm. It's
Yes,
beautiful
yes, he was.
there. Yeah.
Have you been to Cuba?
No, but I've seen videos and pictures and stuff. I would love to go.
I was like, this is a first. I didn't know that she had
No, do
ever
you
been
know
to
for the
Cuba.
longest time
Like,
you couldn't go to Cuba. Like
yeah,
just
I guess,
recently.
is it still like that?
No.
Until recently, yeah.
It's
Cuba's
been
not.
a little bit, but yeah, we weren't able to go there forever.
Um, well, to be honest, I can't say that Cuba's ever been one of the countries that I'm like, oh my God, I gotta visit Cuba before I die. Like, that's
Oh,
not been on my hit list. But
the
yeah, he was
culture,
from
the
Cuba.
cars, they all have like, oh, it's just, yeah, great.
Well, apparently it wasn't all that glamorous because Jose Menendez, spoiler alert, ends up in the United States, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But now apparently his father, Jose's father, was a soccer player who
Mm,
owned an accounting firm, and his mother was a star swimmer. She was also a member of the Country Sports Hall of Fame. So
wow.
they're pretty,
Athletic and
I
well
don't want to
off,
say
it
that
sounds
they're,
like.
yes, but it's like they wanted to be the best. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like the best of the best is the way I take it. Now he had two sisters, Terry and Marta. Okay. Now in Cuba, Jose was spoiled by his mother, and he developed the reputation for being a troublemaker. Um, he was the only boy, and his mother adored him, and she emphasized like his male image so much that he became a bully.
Mm,
So he probably, when I hear that, I take it as he probably got no repercussions for his behavior. And it was like, you probably shouldn't do that, but I'm going to pet you and I'm going to nurture that. And then he turned out to be quite the little shit,
yep.
as what
Spoiled
we
little
learned,
brat with
okay?
no repercussions to any actions.
Now, there was a family neighbor that years later, in an interview with ABC 2020, she talked about how he became quite a monster and that he basically just could not be handled by the parents at all.
Wow.
Hmm.
I mean
Now,
that's his poor mom.
whether or not that's true, I don't know. That's just, that kind of becomes hearsay, right? And obviously, at this point, when this interview is happening with 2020, spoiler alert, Jose Menendez is dead at that point. But this is a neighbor from Cuba telling ABC 2020 he was quite a little shit and he became unmanageable. So, um, now this is during the time that Castro was in power in Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and living conditions got pretty terrible. So, in 1959, following the Cuban Revolution,
Yay.
Jose's parents decided to send their son to the United States so he could basically escape. And he came to this country here in the U.S. with nothing but the clothes on his back.
Jeez. A lot of people
Yeah.
wanted to get out, so that doesn't surprise during the revolution. Um, I don't know too much about it, but I don't know if a lot of people know this. There's actually a Dirty Dancing 2, and it's called Havana
Uh,
Nights. I
I
love
know, but
it.
I can't watch it.
I
No.
love it.
I'm like, I'm so sad.
And it's
Like,
around that
I
time.
feel it, well, um, he ended up settling in Hazleton, Pennsylvania,
Oh.
where he lived in his cousin's attic. Apparently, he must have had family here in the United States, but he settled in this attic. He legit did come here with absolutely nothing. He's a teen. He's not able to speak English. You got to think he's from Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be really hard. And he worked really hard to learn how to speak English, learn to understand English, as well as getting his high school diploma here in the United States. And that's a huge achievement.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge achievement. Like, I do applaud him for that. Although, we're going to learn later that he's quite the dickwad. Yeah.
I love it.
Now, like his mother, Jose was also a really good swimmer.
Okay.
He earned an athletic scholarship to Southern Illinois University. And when he was a freshman in college, this is where he learns our second person in today's case, our
So at
second
that point,
victim,
he's now
who
he's in Illinois.
he had got a scholarship and was in Illinois.
Okay.
I believe that's the way I understand it. I
Okay.
could be wrong. You're welcome to correct me, but I believe that they met in Illinois. But he met a senior. Now she was older than he was, Mary Louise Kitty Anderson, and she goes by Kitty. That was her nickname. That's what everybody called her. She was 2 years older than he was. Now his family all objected. I don't know if it was because she was older. I don't know, but they didn't want that at all. They believed he was too young. They they still proceeded to get married though in 1963.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. At this point, they didn't have a whole lot. But Jose had big dreams to
Yeah.
be the best of the best. Just like his parents were back in Cuba, he wanted to be the best of the best, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm all about people aiming really high, but there's a way of, achieving your goals and not being a dick about it. Like,
So they
trying
got
to be the
married
best.
while he was still in school.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, they relocated to New York City. And this
Oof.
is where Jose ended up transferring to Queens College to pursue an accounting degree. Okay. Now, Kitty, we're going to talk about her for a second. She was born in 1941 to parents Charles and May Anderson. It just dawned on me. The last name
I know. Are
Anderson.
we related?
I don't think so. Theirs is spelled differently, but
How do they spell it?
Andersen.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
our
related.
grandpa was an Anderson.
We're
Sorry, we
safe.
just had like, I was like,
We're safe. We're safe.
but again, Papa got around, so sure. I don't think we're related to the Menendez brothers, so we're going to
I'm
carry
sure
on then.
your
So
parents didn't expect us to just come out of the blue, so we don't know.
yeah,
It's fine.
yeah. So she was the youngest out of four children. She had a middle class upbringing in Oak Lawn, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. Okay. Um, but her life wasn't picture perfect at all. Kitty had some pretty tremendous, terrible experiences growing up. Charles, who owned a heating and air conditioning business, was very abusive towards Kitty's mother. So she did witness a lot of abuse growing up. The couple eventually divorced while Kitty was still a child, causing her to become depressed and withdrawn. So Kitty struggled with depression from a small child on,
Yeah.
and you'll learn that this kind of follows her basically her whole life. She struggled to make friends and carried resentment toward her father for years. Um, she did have big dreams, though. She wanted to be an actress. She wanted to be a model. And she was a really pretty lady. She actually
Okay.
was a beauty queen. Yeah.
Get it,
So
Kitty?
that's where her and Jose kind of have the same dreams to an extent of wanting to be the best of the best. And that's great. Again, I'm all about that. but
Yeah.
don't be a dick about it.
Be humble.
I can't reiterate. Be
Yeah.
humble. Um, People talked about to ABC 2020 about how beautiful and gorgeous she was, though. And again, she was a beauty pageant queen. She won Miss
So
Oaklawn
was
beauty
Jody.
pageant. I was a
We
beauty
talked
pageant
about it.
queen.
Yeah.
I was, but I wasn't a mean little shit about it. Like,
Well,
listen,
no, I'm
my
just kidding.
mama was always like, the first time you cry over not winning one of these things, she said, I will pull your ass out of them and we won't do them. No, and I never cried. But let me tell you what, them pageant moms that you see, there's some mothers that really do act like that.
Yeah.
It's really sad that I
Oh,
did
it's
them because I
disgusting.
wanted to do them, but I was never forced to do
But
them.
her mom probably really did say
So,
that. But Jody was like the
showed my
sweetest,
mama did.
the sweetest little thing.
Oh, well, thanks. I try. Um, Now, other friends described Kitty as glamorous but somewhat secretive about her past. Like, she didn't want people to know that she grew
Understandable.
up in an abusive household. She didn't want people to know that she, did suffer from mental health issues. She didn't want people to know that she didn't have a lot of friends in school because it wasn't because I don't think that she was incapable of making friends. She just withdrew herself from everybody and kind
Yeah.
of isolated herself from people. Um, so Jose is working, well, he's working on his degree towards accounting. He was working as a dishwasher, which people later said like he talked really degrading about that job. And I understand like not wanting to do that for the rest of your life. And listen, if that's what you do, I'm not hating on it, but
No.
it's like he looked down on people for that,
I hate that
even though
because
he did it. You
I
know
don't
what I
care
mean?
what you
Like,
do as long as you're trying to help yourself. That's more than a lot of people.
yeah. Well, he ended up getting a job as an executive an entertainment executive. He made it into the entertainment industry, which is pretty
Wow.
big.
Yeah.
So he went from, very like minimum wage to making a lot of money very quickly. And the couple's first son, Joseph Lyle, who was one of our main characters, who goes by his middle name, Lyle, was born January 10th, 1968 in New York. Kitty was working as a teacher at that point and quit that job right after Lyle was born, and the family moved to New Jersey. New Jersey is a hot commodity in this. We
Really?
eventually get to California. Yes, it is.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
all over the
Lyle
place.
went Yeah, with that, well, yeah, they are. Of course, he's from Cuba, so to him, I don't think where he was at really. I don't mean to sound bad when I say like I don't think it really mattered for him. He moved countries,
Yeah.
to escape brutal conditions. So, um, now Eric Menendez was born on November the 27th, 1970. Um, I believe you say this as Gloucester Township, New Jersey. Um, the family lived in a township and both brothers attended Princeton Day School. I don't know if that's a private school. It sounds like private
It
school. It
sounds
probably
private and
was because,
fancy.
yeah.
Princeton.
Because Jose wanted his boys to be the best of the best
Mm.
and wasn't
Sounds.
going to settle for anything less. Now, after leading the U.S. operations of car rental company Hertz, Jose spent the early 80s as the head of RCA Records and had a hand in the signing of bands. These are some pretty big
Wow.
bands, such as Duran Duran. You know Duran Duran.
Mm-hmm. RCA
Um,
Records. Yeah.
the Eurythmics. He signed those. Um, and Menendo, which we'll talk a little bit about Menendo later on. They were like a Latino, I think, band. I could be wrong about that. I haven't ever listened to their music, but I think they're kind of like a Latino kind of vibe, which is cool. I just don't listen to that kind of music, but I've never
Yeah.
listened to anything of theirs. But yeah, we'll talk about them in the next episode. Now, Lyle and Eric ended up moving from Princeton, New Jersey to Los Angeles. They bought a huge mansion in Beverly
Oh
Hills.
Lord.
You don't You don't live in Beverly Hills unless you have money to back you up for living in
Oh
Beverly
no.
Hills. And this is why I want to emphasize things like what we're about to talk about here in the next few minutes. That doesn't happen in those neighborhoods. You don't. They were like the picture perfect family. They wore the best clothes. They drove the nicest cars. They had the nicest house. The boys played tennis. They were the best of the best. And Jose is very big in the entertainment industry. And we just talked about he signed very well known bands.
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Now,
Like, I mean, I wonder
uh,
how that got. He's. It's just. It just blows my mind because he goes from like sports and being great at sports to I'm gonna shift to accounting, and then you end up in the. I mean, it obviously got you somewhere, but
well,
it wasn't where
in
you
a
were going.
remember that his dad was also in accounting
Right.
back in Cuba.
And a soccer player. So
Mm-hmm.
sports. And he ends up in the
It's
entertainment
all,
industry. It's crazy, but I mean, good for him.
I guess, if you think about it in a sense, and that time frame in the 80s, that the entertainment industry was booming, and I think it was all about if you were in that type of position, the amount of power you had, you could
Yeah.
change people's lives.
Oh yeah.
And you were really looked at like this god, like, especially if you were somebody that wanted to be a model or a singer or something. Those are the type of people you want to get in good with.
Okay.
But we'll learn later on in the next episode about some of his sadistic traits that he has. And I kind of look at that as, is that why you got in that position? Because you had all this power and you could get away with this shit for so long. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead, but all
Don't
right.
do it.
So Lyle was a star tennis player. Okay. And he seemed destined for a career in business like his father. Okay. He basically worshipped the ground to the public side that Jose walked on. He wanted to be just like his dad. That's what he wanted. Okay. Now, Eric turned out to be an even better tennis player. Sorry, boys, if you ever listen to this. I'm going off of what I've researched, but I doubt that they're ever going to get to hear my podcast. But anywho, um, the thing is, Jose had very obsessive intervention when it came to Eric playing tennis. If he messed up, it was said that he would be observed getting up in the stands screaming at his
Mm,
son, like, "What the fuck was that, Eric?" And like, it was one of those,
that's
not
rough.
good try, son, you'll get it next time, or hey, you need to be, I know Colin and Carson, when they play baseball, I'm like, keep your eye on the ball, good try. But I would never in a million years stand up and be like, what the fuck is that? Are you stupid? Or, all these money and all these lessons is doing you no good. But that's what people said he was observed doing at
Mm.
these tennis competitions with Eric. Could you imagine? Like,
So
he
you
would
know he
storm
drove them
off.
hard.
He did.
Yeah.
He drove them very hard. He would come up out of the stands and go out on the tennis court. And it's
Oh,
like, dude, you
embarrassing.
need to chill. Yeah, it's a fucking game. Like,
Yeah.
chill. But yeah, when I tell you, it's one thing to want your kids to be like, I know we've all seen them, those kids at the games that cry because they're not winning or whatever. And you look at the parents and you're like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? But he took it to a whole different level. He was known as a hard driving father who would work his children to the bone in athletics and everything else. He wanted nothing less but for them to be the best of the best and nothing less. Yeah.
Well.
Um, People would talked about how it was like Jose was extremely competitive, obviously, but
Yeah.
he took it to a completely different extreme. He was doing everything he could to make Eric better, as what he said. He was very fixated on making him better. Um,
Oh, he sounds so
this
hard to
is
please. just right off the bat.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. He was in from what I've researched and what people have said, there was no pleasing him.
No.
You like at all. There was no making him happy and accommodating what he had these expectations for his sons. And he would throw in their face a lot too about how he immigrated, from Cuba and worked from, poor conditions to what he is now. And
Ugh.
he did.
I mean,
But I hate it when people want to throw that in your face like, look at me.
yeah.
I think it's just it makes you look like a
I
douche.
came up from
Like
this and this and this.
and that's how he was.
Yeah.
That's exactly how he was. Now the brother's former swim coach told 2020. This is a direct quote from him. He was completely overbearing. He had the opposite effect, if anything. It didn't
Yeah.
make Eric better. It would just make him worse. Not that he was doing badly, but you know what I mean. Um, Eric had so much less self-confidence because everything he did was never good enough.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yes.
funny because when I was a manager at a food place, and I was manager at Pizza Hut for like 8 years, and I had a boss, and oh, she was terrible, absolutely terrible. And her way of motivating people was treating you like shit, yelling at you, or like belittling you, and it was really discouraging. And like, it's not the thing anymore. It doesn't motivate anybody. It makes you just like crumble up inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just want to be done. Like, to be truthful.
Imagine getting it from your
I know.
fucking father.
I know. I can't. That's terrible.
And your mother is present the whole time that's going on and she doesn't speak up for you. Imagine what that has to be like.
Mm.
And if he's doing it in public at tennis matches, what's going on behind closed doors?
Oh, no doubt.
Really, think about
Mm-hmm.
it. Now, I want to emphasize working in psychology, working in mental health. All behavior has a purpose, regardless if it's good or bad. There is an end goal. I want you to think about the toddler that we've all seen at Walmart that looks like they are literally having an exorcism in the floor because mom won't buy the M&Ms, right? And I know what we're all thinking. If that was my kid, I'd bust their ass right now. Don't know if you spank. I grew up with spankings. I spank. But that's what we all think, right? The end goal for the toddler in that moment is eventually mom's going to cave and she's going to buy me the M&Ms. That's the end goal.
She just wants
right?
She wants me to shut up, so she's going to give me my way to shut me up.
She's going to get me my way
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in public. That woman behind me staring at me like I need my ass busted, but I know if I keep doing it, mom's going to cave. How many times have you seen? I've seen it both. I've seen it where the mom caves and she gets the M&Ms and I'm like, oh, well, your son's going to grow up to be a sociopath. And then I've seen it where they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You put those back on the shelf. And if you touch something else, I will shoot you with my laser vision. Like, I've seen both. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gritting their teeth and they're like, you wait till we get to the damn car.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I always
we've seen both.
the back of Jaden's arm in public. I'd have my arm around him, like my hand around his arm, and I'd like just pinch and like grip my teeth. Like, yeah. We are spank. Well, I'm not a spanker. Ryan is a spanker. I've never stopped him because I got worse. I grew up with like the belt and stuff like that. Ryan got switches and stuff like that. So, but to me, I do think that kids need that. It's a consequence,
Mm-hmm.
and we only did it when it was like drastic and
right.
Yeah. So,
but the point is, all behavior has a purpose, regardless if it's good or bad. And I emphasize the bad because I've dealt with a lot of people who do really negative behaviors that I would define to be toxic, that you would define to be toxic. And they do that because there is an end goal. Mm-hmm. Even though we're like, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
What is the purpose of stealing from Walmart and, doing all these other things? There's an end goal. And a lot of the times, the end goal is the fact that they want attention.
Mm-hmm.
As fucked up as it is, because they weren't ever given that. Nature versus nurture, it's a real thing.
Oh, we've all
So, what
seen
we
Karens,
see,
where Karens go in and they cause massive scenes, and you're
mm-hmm.
like, where is this going? And then you've seen the company or you've worked for the company where like they're just gonna give her what she wants, and they do.
But
They
there's an end goal
and
for
she
it. Right.
knows they're going to, and that's why she acts like that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, when they moved to California, Eric and Lyle took a very rebellious form of behavior. Now,
Sure.
mind you, we know they're living in Beverly Hills. They're very wealthy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're wearing the best of the best, all the things. They started stealing from their neighbors. They were going in and breaking and entering in houses and stealing things.
Well,
And
it
that,
seems like they were so like confined by their dad that like they just needed to break these walls.
well, they were finally. Well, to me, when I hear all that at this point, they're like, "Fuck it!" Like and we're never going to meet his expectation. We need some form of an adrenaline rush. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
excusing their behavior at all. I'm not condoning it. That's not appropriate. If they can hear
Oh
this now,
yeah,
that was really stupid,
it was.
right? Look what it did. Like it was. It was really ignorant. But at the same time, I really think it was nothing more than a form of give me some attention, Dad. That's
Facts.
at the you know what I mean? Like what can I do now to meet your expectations? So obviously Jose's got money. They ended up getting caught
Mm.
and to avoid jail time, they were court ordered basically therapy. And this is where another big character in our case comes in. Oh, Dr. Jerome Oziel. And you know what? Quite frankly, I'm sorry. This man doesn't get to be called a doctor, in my opinion. I don't give a shit that you went and got your your MD. You're a piece of fucking shit, Dr. Oziel.
Mm-hmm.
Like a teetotal piece of shit. Which we'll talk about here in a little bit, okay? Because he's not ethical
No, your
whatsoever.
doctorate doesn't
And
make
I'm
you a good person.
well, right, right. And I'm all about people, I've made friends with some of the doctors that I work with, that we're on a first name basis. My director doesn't want me to even call her by her doctor and last name. I'm not going to say who that is. She's like, "Oh no, please call me this." And that's great. I do it out of a respect thing, but people like him don't deserve to be called doctor such
Yeah.
and such in my opinion. Yeah. So, this is when Lyle, during this time, so he's older, he's already graduated. He gets enrolled in Princeton University.
Wow.
Um, yeah, which is a really prestige school, but he ended up getting suspended for plagiarism.
Oof. Mm.
But again, I just want to reiterate, he probably was scared plumb to death that anything he wrote wouldn't meet his father's expectations. Again, I'm not condoning it. You know better. But yeah, so he got suspended, and this ended up causing just more chaos, of course, within the home,
Yeah.
right? So now we're going to fast forward to August the 20th, 1989. Okay. Dispatch gets a call from two hysterical young men. You can hear Eric in the background screaming and crying. Lyle is not making any sense. They said that their parents had been shot. They said they had just come home and found them. Police, when they had arrived to the home, they find Eric. He's sitting on the grass. He's like absolutely hysterical all over the place. Um, when they went in, they could see that Jose and Kitty apparently had been watching television. They were about to eat some dessert. I don't know what that was, but there was dessert there on the table. The living room that they were sitting in it was horrific. There was blood everywhere.
Wow.
They had been shot with shotguns.
Oh, fuck.
Yes, yeah. Um, Kitty was shot 10 times in total.
With a shotgun?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. Shotguns are brutal, guys. Like, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jose was shot 6 times, including a fatal shot to the back of his head.
Mm.
This was very personal.
Like execution style to his head, or was it from a distance?
Um, it didn't specify,
Hmm. Okay.
but um, she Kitty evidently had been alive still with some of these gunshot wounds, and she
Okay.
was on the ground, kind of like she was trying to crawl away. And the last shot went straight to her cheek. It was straight in her face,
Mm.
and went through her cheek. Um, the brothers had told police that they had gone to the movies that night, that they went home and then they get home and this is how they found him. But they were very, very hysterical. During this time, they were not a suspect to this at all. If anything, they thought this was a mob hit because Jose had like some doings with the mob. No signs whatsoever. The entertainment industry that Jose worked for ended up putting the boys in a hotel that night. Obviously, they can't, sleep there. Their home is a crime scene.
Yeah.
Um, in the months after the killings, though, this is when things start to get a little bit bizarre. They are noticing that the boys are spending a lot of money, but they're millionaires. That's how they grew up.
Mm.
They ended up spending about $700,000 within the months that their parents had,
Oh,
been
that's so
murdered.
much
Which, yes, kind of threw some red flags. They were going, out of the country. They were bought rental properties. They were buying nice watches. They were buying cars. I mean, they went on a full blown shopping spree.
money. Was this just like out of the
Um,
norm spending habits for them? Like obviously they spent money because they had it, but like properties and like
I think that the way the public perceived it was, how could they be spending all this money when their parents just were executed in
yeah.
such a terrible way? Because again, things like that didn't happen. Okay. Now again, for a while they wasn't suspects. The police genuinely 100% believed that the mob was involved. And they were asking them who could do this to your parents, But there was things that the boys were saying that brought up red flags, like wanting to go to tennis tournaments, not completely complying with the police. There was red flags. But $700,000, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like you. How do we know? I guess it was more of the public perceiving what you're doing after the deaths of your parents, not necessarily the amount of money that you've spent, but what the way you're acting after the math. But we all grieve differently. I'm not saying everything that they did was okay,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but they was dining in very extravagant, fancy places. I mean, they were living it up. Okay. Now, there is a famous picture, if you look it up online, where they actually attended the New York Knicks basketball game. And you can see them sitting there at the basketball game. This is after, not right immediately after. I don't know if it was like a month, 2 months, but they're sitting there. They're having a good old time. They're just chilling. And people really took that and they're like, well, look at them. They're not grieving, you know. They're not acting like people should. And I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
who are you to dictate how people grieve, though?
Yeah.
That's, you know what
Some
I
people
mean?
just
Like,
aren't emotional people. I mean, they
some
don't
people
have,
aren't.
yeah, emotional ties to
Now,
anything.
but again, we got to think about the time. This was in the 80s, the late
Yeah.
80s, early 90s. Times are a lot different now. A lot different. Now, during the early stages of the investigation, police tried to narrow down their search to suspects who had motives to kill them, right? So they're going through and they're like, who would do this? Because they're a picture perfect family.
Mm-hmm.
They look like they could have anything and everything they wanted. What's the problem? Who would do that? As the investigation continued, they began to suspect that the brothers had some sort of involvement.
Mm.
And they took it as financial motive
Oh, absolutely.
because they had heard that Jose had told the boys at some point that he was going to have them removed from the will.
Oh.
So they took that as that's exactly what it is. It's a money mechanism. Um, they tried to get a confession with one of Eric's friends and got one of Eric's friends to wear a wire to dinner. And the friend ended up asking him point blank, he's like, so did you do this? And he's like, well, no. Like, why would you even ask me if I, and he's like, of course I didn't kill my parents.
Yeah.
Like, he's just continuing on with his meal. Like, nothing's wrong. And yeah,
Didn't crack.
yeah, he didn't crack. Now, after the murders, Dr. Oziel, who I fucking hate. He's such a dick. So Mr. Oziel, I keep saying I'm not going to call him doctor, and then I do, but Mr. Oziel ended up reaching out to the boys because, obviously their parents have been murdered. They probably need some therapy. And Eric ends up going to counseling. Eric's the one that, I don't want to say that he had more extensive mental health issues than what Lyle did. I'm not desensifying any of Lyle's trauma at all. They're both very much traumatized. But Eric seemed to be the more emotional one between the two of them about everything that had happened. And he ended up cracking and confessing to Oziel that they had killed their parents because apparently it was eating Eric alive. He couldn't sleep. He was it was really driving him crazy. And he had to get it off his chest. So he told his doctor. But here's the thing. There's a thing that we call doctor-patient confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. And that was this was a big thing during this. Well, Dr. Oziel tells Eric, he's like, don't worry about it. We need to get Lyle down here. We need, I'm going to take care of you boys. Anything you tell me is safe with me. What he didn't tell him is that he decided to call his mistress. Yes, he had a mistress, one of his patients, who we're going to learn later on is batshit fucking crazy. But he had been sleeping with one of his female patients, calls her because he's afraid for his life, has her tape record their confession without them knowing. When Lyle got there, apparently Lyle was pissed. And he's like denying. He's like, why would you tell him we did that? And there's a lot of argument back and forth. And they ended up cracking, right? But Oziel blackmails them and tells them if they continue to pay him for therapy sessions, his lip will be shut.
Okay, so let's just lay it out there. So there is patient-doctor confidentiality to a certain extent. I don't know if it was
there is.
I was going to say, I don't know if it was still the case back then, but I think it was, to where if it involves any harm to somebody or to themselves, the therapist or doctor or who, they have to report it.
Well, there is the duty to warn. That's what you're talking about, duty to warn. And it's a state by state basis, I believe. Okay. And we have, not too long ago, actually, we had a circumstance with a duty to warn. But I'll have to look it up. I'm very curious. The big red flag with his issue is, I understand completely, like, oh my God, you're confessing a murder to me on an open investigation. Mm-hmm. I need to report this. That's one thing. But he broke HIPAA. He broke HIPAA to tell his mistress, who is his patient, about what he broke patient confidentiality 100%. That's a huge HIPAA violation. And 2, he went ahead and recorded these sessions without them knowing. You can't do that. That's a huge no-no.
That's why on phones and stuff like that, just so you know, this call's being recorded for blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. We have by law, you have to.
Oziel's the whole reason for that. Wow. Congratulations, prick. No, I don't know that he's the whole reason for it, but yeah.
That's disgusting.
Well, what gets me is he took advantage of a woman who was psychotically ill and was having a sexual affair. He's married.
Mm.
Like you're taking advantage of someone who is
You're just a great guy
mentally
all the way
ill.
around, sir.
And then you have a man in your office,
Mm.
like, I can't live with myself anymore. Eric was experiencing suicidal ideation. That's how much this was eating him alive.
And then you
And
did
he's like,
that.
and then you did that.
Oh, that's
That's where
disgusting.
I'm like,
Because now
yes,
he's
yeah.
like, oh, my confession was all for nothing, and now it worsened the situation. Now I've got more stress on me because now I got somebody blackmailing me.
Now, and I listen, I'm not being derogatory to Judalon Smith. That's the mistress, okay? I sympathize with her. I really 100% do. As a mental health professional, it makes me fucking sick that that man did that to her.
Yeah,
He
that's
had her
taking advantage.
convinced that he would eventually leave his wife, you know, the same song and dance. This woman had suicidal ideation. She was very anxious. She showed all symptoms of she felt like she could not be happy without having somebody. And she went to therapy to get basically, I'm sorry, in a sense, you're sexually abusing your patient. Like, that's the way I
My
look at
problem
it.
is I feel like constantly need to be with somebody. I'm here to learn how to be independent on my own, but I want to be with you. Like,
Well, she claims
he took
that
advantage
I
of
don't know how the
an issue.
he did, he took advantage of numerous clients, as we learned,
Yeah.
but Judalon Smith is the big one. And here's the thing about Judalon. He's telling her all this false hope. Then he would go back and be like, I'm not leaving my wife for you. And she would go into like these temper tantrums because she's not mentally well. She has a very weird obsession, which we see in the trial, right? And she
Right.
ends up, she's like, well, you've brought me here and involved me in this whole murder thing that the boys have confessed to you. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid for my life that they're going to come kill me.
Yeah.
So he ended up moving her in his house for a period of
Oh
time
my
with his wife. There's
How?
so many. And the
Yeah.
wife is under the impression that this is like I'm assisting a patient kind of thing.
Uh,
She's in a bad situation and
mm,
whatnot. And of course, now you have this mentally ill woman. And listen, I work in mental health. I'm not hating on the mentally ill. If anything, I've learned they're more afraid of us than we should be of them. And
but you're
that's the
not bringing
honest
them
to God
home.
truth. But you don't need, I would never bring my patients home. No, ever. I've joked and been like, God, I would bring them home in a heartbeat, but I really wouldn't.
I
Never.
mean, maybe
Because they're
let me buy you a
manipulative
hotel room for the
people.
night. But I'm not bringing you
Yes.
home.
No. But she comes in and she starts telling his children that she's going to be their new mother. Yeah. Of course, that went south. So he
Awkward.
gets mad because the wife is like, why is your patient telling our children that that she's going to be their new, like, so many
Because she's
red flags had happened.
mentally not
So
okay.
what's end up happening, he's like, I'm getting you the fuck out of my fucking house. You have to go. This is over. And what happens?
Oh God, she
Judalon
sang
has
like a
the
freaking
confession
bird.
tapes. And she called the police and she sang like a fucking canary.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the boys had still been honoring because they're scared to death that, he's not on their side. But every time they would go meet with him, he was recording these conversations and getting their confession on tape. And he's profiting money from them for
Mm.
it.
Oh
I
my
know,
God.
it's really, yeah. So, I know, it's awful. It's terrible. So, Lyle was arrested on March the 8th, 1990. Eric was in Israel at the time in a tennis competition. He learned about his brother's arrest. I want to say something. Eric could have fled and been gone. He could have been hiding in a
Oh yeah.
completely different
Never
country,
came back.
but he came home and turned himself in.
Wow. What?
He came home and turned himself in. Yeah. Police met him at the airport. And I mean,
Kudos.
here's the thing. To me, that speaks volume. Some people don't look
Absolutely.
at that. There's some people that say they're cold blooded monsters. I get it. they shot the two people that helped bring them into this world and killed them. And it was a very, very, very graphic scene. But this man could have fled the whole world
He was
and
already out of
never,
the
you know,
country. Already.
he was already out of the country already. I mean, there's a good chance they probably would have learned his whereabouts and tried to extradite him.
Yeah.
But if you have something to hide and you know, why'd you come back?
Yeah.
Like,
Did
yeah.
he do it
So
for his brother? Like, if his brother didn't
I
get
think,
arrested, would he have done it?
well, we will learn in our next episode that Eric and Lyle are very, very close. And Eric and
Okay.
Lyle have a bond that unfortunately some people later on tried to twist and manipulate into something else. But when we learned their story more, we learned that they were all they had. So I do believe, if anything, I really do think that Eric was trying to do the right thing, as
Mm-hmm.
fucked up as that sounds, because he didn't have to tell his therapist. He
Yeah.
obviously had a lot of remorse because, I mean, this was eating him alive on a regular basis. And he told his therapist that it's on a recorded audio tape. He's like,
Most
I
killers
want to
don't.
kill myself.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to die. If I could go back in time, I would have killed myself and not them. That, yeah, I mean, it's really heartbreaking to understand. And we'll learn later on why they were in such a mentally, dark place. But the big thing that came into question when they get their attorneys, who we'll talk about, next week, because we're about to cut off here, is the confession tapes and how that was an argument because, again, it's patient doctor confidentiality. And the big argument was, will those get to be brought into court? Can that be utilized as a defense? Otherwise, it's just hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I leave you.
I'm so invested because I do know I do know their motive. I do know their childhood. I know that
Mm-hmm.
part of their motive. But so it's them being as close as they are makes 100% sense to me. So the fact that other people's heads went elsewhere is just something's wrong with you. That's, I mean, there's
Yeah,
nobody that goes through life or lives the same life but your siblings than you. You can
exactly.
have the closest friend and they didn't live the same life as you like your siblings do. And when you have a childhood that we'll get into, I'm not going to dive into that, but a childhood like they did, I wouldn't expect them to be any other way.
Right.
They were literally
Right.
each other's confidants. They were each other's safe places. They were, they were, that just drives me nuts that people did that.
I get tore up about this case.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very passionate about it. Um, I'll go ahead and tell you, I feel like our judicial system 100% failed to individuals,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll talk more about
I
that
don't know the
next
deeds,
week.
so yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it. So I hate that we're stopping here, but it is what it is. We got to keep you guys. We got to keep you on the edge of your seats, so you guys come back next week,
That's right. That's
and then
right. All right. We'll see
so
you next week, guys.
yes, and please like, follow, subscribe on most social media platforms. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify. So give us some kind of feedback in any way you possibly can, and we appreciate you guys.
All right.
See you
Bye,
next week.
doll babies.
Bye.